Well, welcome to another edition of Virtually Tasting, the featured Foggy Noggin Beer of the Week. This week we're tasting MLK Alt. It's a German alt-style beer. We brew it once a year on Martin Luther King Day in January, and then we cold lager it all the way till we release it either the end of March or 1st of April. Really excited to be trying this year's beer. It's one of my favorites. I look forward to it every year. So German style alt beer. It's an ale, but it's brewed like a lager. And so Dusseldorf is the city that's still really has the foothold on that style of traditional German alt beers, and we'd love to go there someday and see all the different examples you could get in that city. Ours is a 4.2% alcohol, and it's got 55 IBUs. It's not a bitter beer. From those ratios, you'd think it'd be a little on the bitter side. No, it's got enough hops into it to dry it out and give you a little hop presence, but it's about a balanced malty beer with enough hops to take the sweetness out at the finish and let it dry finish with a little bit of a hoppy character to it. For those who are interested in home brewing this or getting the recipes, our original gravity is at 1046, terminal gravity 1014. Color on this beer is at 10.8. Tell from that, it's got some nice, copper, bronzy colors to it. A nice pure white head, a nice color contrast on it, actually. We use the Dusseldorf water, and we used to use the Yeast 1007, their German ale yeast, and we switched to the Kaiser yeast from Imperial. We get more yeast cells, and we think we're getting a cleaner fermentation on it. So we've got 4 malts. They're all German. They're from our favorite German maltster, Weirmann. And what we've got is their Bohemian Pilsner, which is a floor malted version of their Pilsner, 18.5 pounds or 61.7% of the malt bill. Then we've got 4.5 pounds each of their Vienna and their Munich, which is 15% each. And then our last is 2.5 pounds of their Cara Munich 3, 8.3. It's a dark Munich, and it gives us some of that dark richness and some of those rich bready kind of characters to it. We mash it in 148 degrees, so a lower temperature to give us a shorter chain sugars. We want a clean fermentation. We want this mouthfeel to be on the lower side. We don't want a big chewy beer. We want this to be light, refreshing, and very, very drinkable. When we are done with the mash, we sparge it out with 170 degree water. We collect our sugars into our boil kettle, boil it for 1 hour. At 60 minutes left, we're using German Magnum hops, 2.5 ounces at 60 minutes, which gives us 48 IBUs. And then at 30 minutes left, we put the Hallertau Mittelfrüh, 2 ounces gives us 6 IBUs. We then transfer to the fermenter at 65 degrees, let it rise to 68, let it ferment out for 2 weeks, and then we transfer it to cold conditioning, and we cold condition as long as we can. So I would say a minimum, if someone's doing it at home, you want 4 weeks, but if you can get away with 8, 10, 12 weeks, it'd be awesome. Just brings brilliance, crispness to that beer, and that's what this beer is all about. Well, let's take a look at this beer. It looks beautiful. It's got a smell, light ester profile. The German ale yeast is going to give you a little bit less of that estery. There's a little bit of a hoppy aroma, but it's really about the malts. It's got a rich bready character to it. A little different than the English malts for the bready character. This is more of a light, more of a white bread instead of that dark roast, dark rich bread. But it's got beautiful bready tones to it. Delicious. This is a perfect beer for this coming weekend because Friday and Saturday is supposed to be pretty nice weather. This is a beer that is refreshing. It's crisp. It's one that's easy to drink. It's only 4.2% alcohol. A lot of character to it. Rich in flavors. Up front, a little bit of sweetness, little bready tones through, and then it finishes nice with a slight bitter hoppiness, but it's really well balanced, and it's just it'll go with anything. This is a beer that you could, I don't think it would offend anybody, and Well, it doesn't offend my beaver gnome, and it doesn't offend the Foggy Noggin bobblehead. And you notice the sign back here. Last weekend was our 11th anniversary, curbside pickup style. But this was a beautiful banner made by my granddaughter, Abby. So let's learn a little bit about the alt beer. And I think there's no way better of learning about alt beers than going to the source of the knowledge, and that's Michael Jackson's Beer Companion. Not the singer-dancer Michael Jackson. His nickname was the Beer Hunter. And if you could find this book, this is a fantastic book. Michael Jackson's Beer Companion. And it's the world's great beer styles and gastronomy and traditions. And he's got a great section on alt beers, and I'm going to read you some of this because I think he really hits the head on a lot of these things. Some German beers use the adjective alt, which means old, in their names, merely to imply a vague traditionalism, but the connoisseur is looking for a more specific style of brew. When the new technique of lager brewing spread west from its Central European birthplace, it did not find acceptance everywhere. The old tradition of top fermenting retained a hold in some brewing cities of the west and north, here especially in Dusseldorf and its neighboring towns, to indicate a local style of top fermenting beer. Although a German style with its own distinctive character, alt is Germany's counterpart to the ales of Belgium and Britain. And I think this is like Germans brewing like they were English, is kind of my term on this one, but we're using all German ingredients. Within Germany, alt beers are very much a local style which has remained a tradition, though in a smaller way than in Dusseldorf, in Munster and Hanover. In recent years, has began to be brewed elsewhere, notably in the United States. Some of these distinct examples are faithful to the German original, but others have been deemed alt beers in competition simply because they combine warm fermentation with cold maturation. It's really important to use the right ingredients, though, to get the real true style of that alt beer. The examples made in the Dusseldorf area are the classics of styles. They have a color somewhere between bronze to copper brown. And so they're talking about 15 to 20 for the color, and we're at 10.8. So we're probably a little bit lighter than what you're going to probably find in Dusseldorf. It's going to have a distinctively clean, rounded maltiness, nonetheless not overpowering, combined with a hoppy bitterness, which would be in the lower 30s or occasionally into the 50, and we're at 55 IBUs, so we're on the high end of that, especially in the finish. The hop, too, is a pronounced without being overwhelming. They are beautifully balanced beers. Fruitiness in the top fermentation is very restrained. These brews very definitely manifest a smooth palate that comes from a relatively cold maturation. It has to have, it should have, a Dusseldorf alt should have at least 2 or more malts, Pilsner type, Munich, and perhaps some Vienna and some black malt. Some Dusseldorf brewers favor infusion mash, but the decoction system is widely used. So that's really, from Michael Jackson, a great description on it, and I agree with it. It's just a beautiful, beautiful beer. And then according to the BJCP, which is the Brewers Championship guidelines, they say that the refers to the old style of brewing that was common before bottom fermenting began, predates the isolation of bottom fermenting yeast strains, though it approximates many characteristics of bottom fermenting lager beers. That's on that crisp quality that you get in a crisp Pilsner. And many of the classic examples can be found in brew pubs in the Allstat section of Dusseldorf. Well, let's go plan a trip to Dusseldorf and do some tasting. And that'd be a lot of fun. So I am going to switch this camera around and take some Q&A. And as you can see this time, you can see me without being backwards. We'll see how I do when I switch this around. It could be interesting. Now we got to lower it down so you can see. And let's see who we've got here tonight. We've got Sean and Gary and Jeff and Kim. Cheers, Jeff. Back to you. Tom, Craig. Sorry, Jim, got to go next time. And Aline. So this is a really great beer. It's going to be available in growler fills for this weekend. Friday and Saturday, curbside pickup. $16 for a growler fill this beer. This is one you're really going to want to get. We only do one batch of this a year, and so you're going to have a limited chance to be getting this one. So you're going to want to make sure you order that. If you go to the foggynogginbrewing.com website, you can see the beer tab, and all the details are there, and you can place your order. And we'll have it ready for you for pickup Friday or Saturday. Sure is a delicious beer. If people like well-balanced beers, beers that are, you can taste every little ingredient in it, beers that are going to be not one-dimensional, that are going to bring you some just smoothness qualities, beers are great to reminisce and enjoy the complexity without being overbearing, this is the beer for you. Wow. Well, I think I could drink 3 or 4 of those pretty easy. Carbonation level on this, we're at 1.5 volumes, traditional English volumes. I would assume, because of just German beers in general, Pilsners, there's going to be a little bit more carbonated when you go to Germany, but I don't know that. So we're brewing it as a Englishman would brew a German alt beer. I don't know if anyone out there has had any other alt beers, any ones that you really enjoy. I remember one of the first ones that I had was back when Widmer in Portland, Oregon started. Their original flagship beer was their alt beer, and it was an outstanding beer. And I remember first tasting it, and it was like, wow, that's really an interesting beer. Great flavor, easy, smooth, well-balanced. And then they came out with their Widmer Hefeweizen, which really became their beer. But to this date, still, I think the best beer that Widmer, in my opinion, has ever made was their alt beer. Welcome, Jerry. So there are other good alt beers out there. I usually order them if I see them around because I really like the style. But you know, it's interesting that Alaskan Amber is described as a German alt beer, and so is Negro Modelo. And I don't really view either one of those as being a true alt beer, but that's the classification they would put them in. It's a fun beer to brew. It's a fun beer to drink, and the only problem with brewing this beer is you're going to want to taste it, and so you're going to have a problem of letting it sit there at that 32 degrees or anything below 40 degrees. As long as you can keep it there in secondary, you're going to get the clarity. You're going to have all the yeast drop out, and you're just going to get that beautiful color, clarity, and you're going to get that crispness on it. German malts have a distinctive different flavor than English malts. They're a little bit brighter. Instead of, I'd say English malts are a little bit richer and a little bit more overpowering, although they're well balanced as well. But the German ones are going to be a little crisper, a little lighter in intensity, but they're going to have delicious flavors on it, delicious aromas and delicious flavors. We'll go over the recipe one more quick time. It's a 4.2% alcohol by volume beer, 55 IBUs. We use 4 ingredients in the mash. We use all from Weyermann, but if you can get any German ingredients, the key things you're going to want to get mainly Pilsner. You're going to get some Munich and some Vienna and maybe some Cara Munich. And you may want to even use more Cara Munich than we do to darken the color up just a little bit. But we do 62% of the Bohemian Pilsner, which is a floor malted version, and then we use 15% each of the Vienna and Munich, and then the rest 8% of the Cara Munich from Weyermann. Mash it at 148 degrees because we want shorter chain sugars, we want a clean fermentation, we want it to easily adapt, and we want that body to be on a lighter scale. Then we collect all the sugars and boil it for 1 hour. We have a hop addition at 60 minutes of our Magnum German variety. So if you can get the German grown ones, that's what you want. You want 2.5 ounces at 60 minutes. It'll give you 49 IBUs. And then at 30 minutes, little Hallertau middle few, 2 ounces, and it'll give you another 6 IBUs. Then we transfer to our fermentation where we have, we use Imperial's Kaiser yeast, which is a German yeast. And then we put it in there at 65 degrees, let it rise to 68, and we let it stay in there for 2 weeks. 2 weeks for that clean fermentation. You want all the diacetyl to remove, and you want that beer to be stabilized. Pull it out of there. Go into secondary at 32 degrees or as close as you can, depending what your conditions are, and as long as you can. 4 weeks minimum, 10, 12 weeks to be optimum, and what you get is a crisp, fantastic, smooth, delightfully well-balanced beer that really is made for sitting out in the sun and just really enjoying time. Welcome, Bob. So that's how we do it. Dusseldorf water, which is, if you want to look it up and see how you can change your water to Dusseldorf or as close as you can, or you can try it with just your own water. I'm sure it's going to be a really good beer too. One of my favorite beer styles, I always say it's Germans trying to brew like Englishmen. So Friday, Saturday, curbside pickup, 4 to 5 p.m. Go to the foggynogginbrewing.com website and hit the beer tab. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 for the happiest half hour of the week. We're going to have some music, some piano, some song, some fun. It's actually the happiest half hour of the week. It's the official start of the weekend. So don't miss us on Facebook Live, 5:30 tomorrow night, Thursday, every week. And then we'll be back next Wednesday for another virtual tasting of the featured effin' beer of the week. Thanks for joining, everybody. And if you missed the beginning, this will be archived on our Facebook page and you can watch it again. And we look forward to seeing you guys this weekend for curbside pickup. Cheers, everyone.